Good morning. It's 9 o'clock a.m., so I wanted to welcome y'all to our 2023 annual RFQ kickoff meeting. My name is Keith Brooks. I'm the Director of Public Works, and we'll be going through this presentation, just giving you information on what we got coming up for our 2023 RFQ. We'll also have other various departments that will come up that will also discuss the project categories that they have, and we will also talk about our MWBE process. So let's go ahead and get started. So why this annual RFQ? So what we want to do is we want to be able to consolidate our efforts for our capital improvement programs, which includes public works, water utilities, and asset management. We also want to provide a fair, transparent process for consultant selection. So what's new this year versus what we've been doing in previous years? So Asset Management Department will be joining us this year for this year's RFQ. They handle our facilities, city facilities, new construction and maintenance. So they'll be joining us. Parks and Recreation will not be a part of this RFQ for 2023. We'll only be releasing one RFQ. In the past, I think if you've been part of the process, we've released at least 3 for Public Works, Water, and Parks separately. This year, we're doing one RFQ. So one RFQ will be released and includes a combined list of each department's categories. This year, we're also not doing the paper copies, so we won't be accepting any paper copies for the RFQ for your statement of qualifications. What we'll ask is that you submit one USB in a sealed envelope to the Public Works Department, regardless of the categories that you're submitting for. So no paper copies, all USB flash drive. And then elaboration of category descriptions to provide more details and increase opportunities for diverse firm participation. So those are things that we're going to be focusing on this year's RFQ that's new. So when is everything due? So the submittals are due on November 4th at 4:30 p.m. That is the deadline. If it's submitted after that, it will be deemed as unresponsive, or we will not look at it. So please don't cut it too close. 4:30 p.m. November 4th is the deadline. And here's the address to submit it to Public Works. Any questions, any additional questions, we ask that you submit those. We want to make sure that we have a written documentation of the actual questions. So please don't submit or make phone calls. Actually submit your questions to the email address that we have below. And the deadline to submit this, all of this is in the actual RFQ documentation, but the deadline to submit this is October 21st. That's coming up pretty quick. So if you have additional questions from today, that will need to be submitted on October 21st at 12 noon. That's the deadline for additional questions for the RFQ. And this presentation and everything will be presented on the city website, and also will be sending out through Ion Wave. So you'll have this presentation, but any additional questions, please submit those by October 21st. Okay, so the format that we're requesting, this will be mandatory, as we're just talking about the everything submitted with the USB. Will need to be in PDF format, and as you can see here, these are things that are critical that will need to be in this PDF format. So cover letter, your consultant contact sheet, your MWBE forms and certificates, and individual PDF for each category submittal. So for each category submittal, there'll need to be a separate PDF. Not following the directions can lead to immediate disqualification. And so there were times last year we had to disqualify those that make submittals if they didn't follow the instructions. We have a lot of these that we have to go through, and so it helps us as staff when everybody's following the directions and we don't have to decipher anything or things of that nature. So it's very important that everybody follows these directions. Also, along those lines, so we'll have mandatory naming convention. And you can see here we'll require that you put your firm name on everything, whether it's the consultant contact sheet, cover letter, or your categories. You'll need to make sure your firm name and the category that you're applying for is shown as we show here in the example. Make sure that the category PDF should make sure that it's relevant to the MWB forms and certificates for your team that you are identifying for that particular category. Okay, so we're going to have several categories this year. We're going to actually have 28 project categories. So we'll have asset management, public works, and water. We have 28 categories that you'll be able to submit an RFQ for. The number of projects is subject to change based on city budget, which is approved every year in March. So we're trying to get this done all of this done by the end of the year. And typically we try to have that done so when the capital budget starts the next year, that next fiscal year for 2023, normally that's around February, March of that year, we will already have our consultants selected so that when the capital budget is approved, we can go ahead and get started with contract negotiations and get started immediately. So that's kind of the plan going into next year. Each category you're submitting must be a separate PDF document on the USB drive. So make sure that you don't just bundle everything together. Please follow the naming conventions and have each document in a separate PDF named properly. Selection is not guaranteed. So when you get selected for the pool, it's not a guarantee of a contract. Sometimes we do select more consultants than we have projects. Just in case there's an issue with negotiations with a certain consultant, we can move on to the next consultant. So you're not guaranteed a contract, but that's just part of that process. This is just an example of what, if you've seen this before, some of the project categories, what they look like. We'll have the category number, and then we'll also show the anticipated number of projects that we're going to have. It doesn't mean that it'll be exactly that number. It's just what it says. It's anticipated. Sometimes we end up canceling projects. Sometimes we end up adding projects. But it at least gives you an idea of what we're thinking going into the RFQ. Okay, so this is the categories that we have in Public Works. So we have 12 categories, and you can see the list is pretty extensive. We normally have our roadway arterial category, residential rebuilds, sidewalks, intersection improvements, bridge repairs, bridge culvert design. And so as we go through the list here, you can see our list of categories. So make sure that you indicate which categories that you are applying for and provide the appropriate documentation for each of these categories. And at this time, Alf, if you want to come up and talk about asset management.
Thanks, Keith. We are a little different than water and public works. Some of our projects just hit us without us knowing it's coming. So, there's a lot of work that happens. Building commissioning is one of the key things we try to do on new projects and also on renovations, just to make sure we've got everything lined up. We get what we're asking for. Geotechnical is another category. Material testing, labs, architectural and engineering. We've got a lot of projects that pop up where we need an architect or an engineer to help us get the design done and then put it out for bids. So this would be an ongoing, if we've got somebody in this category, we can look to them whenever these projects pop up. Structural and MEP engineers, environmental hygienist. Any projects that we take on, we have to do an asbestos investigation, even if it's a brand new project, because you never know, somebody might slip in some materials that we weren't asking for. So that's why that's there. And then test and balance for all our mechanical systems on our projects. That's it for us.
Thanks, Alf. Let's see, Emily, you want to come up and talk about water?
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Hannon with Water Utilities. So if any of you are familiar with last year's RFQ, some of the categories are similar, but this year I think we have a total of 9 categories. So this year we are splitting it up between small diameter and large diameter pipeline designs. So small diameter is anywhere from 6 inches to 15 inches, and then our large diameter is 16 inches and larger. We also have our pipeline stream crossing design and geomorphological services. So think any pipelines in close proximity to creeks where the pipelines might be undermined due to erosion. Those projects pop up frequently every year. We also have our water utility local, state, and federal funding assistance, water treatment, miscellaneous engineering support. That category is supposed to be more geared towards like a holistic design. So think all disciplines that might be involved in a water treatment project. Then we also have separately water treatment miscellaneous structural engineering support, and then water treatment miscellaneous electrical engineering support. So those two are geared towards those disciplines being the lead disciplines on projects such as those. We also have water tank inspection and evaluation services. So that would basically mean a dry inspection of our elevated storage tanks. So that includes draining, sediment removal, and chlorination. And then we also have our Lake Arlington Dam engineering services. So basically doing an assessment of the dam and then updating our emergency action plan for the dam. And that's everything for water utilities, and I'll return it to Keith.
All right, thanks, Emily. Okay, our team organization. So please include in your organization chart for each specific category. Describe your qualifications, education, relevant certifications for all key team members. And we expect that the team list in the proposal to perform, the city expects the teams listed in the proposal to actually perform the work. So we've run into that a little bit in the past. So please, if whatever you submit as your team, please make sure that that is actually your team when it's actually time to do the actual work, because your selection could be a key factor into why you were selected to begin with. So please make sure that the team remains consistent. And then identify your sub-consultants, and of course who your QC/QA personnel is going to be handling the project. So it's important to make sure that you really put your best foot forward with your project experience. Each example should be up to 1 page in length. Just be clear about your roles of key personnel, your experience with government agencies. This is your opportunity to kind of set yourself apart. Like I said, we have a lot of these that we review. So please take this time to show us what you can do there. Submit completed projects, actual completed projects in the last 5 years, not something you're working on currently, but something you've actually completed. And then we need to make sure that you have good references and limited claims history. So submit a plan sheet if example results in construction plans. So again, not something you've just designed, something that's actually been put out and is actually in construction or done. And then make sure that your experience is actually relevant to the actual category itself. So if you're working on a TxDOT project and this is a residential rebuild, we don't want to see what you did on a TxDOT, highway project. We want to see what you've done on a residential rebuild. They're totally two different animals. So evaluation and selection. So we have our committee. We'll have our evaluation committee, which includes representation from multiple departments. We'll have submittals and scores based on predetermined criteria. Evaluations will occur in late 2022. And one of the things that we're doing that's new this year is, so we will be checking references. References will be contacted for the firms who are included in the preliminary shortlist. So that won't happen until you're shortlisted. Once you're shortlisted, that doesn't guarantee that you'll be on the final list until we check your actual references. So assuming that those references are good, then we would proceed. But that is something new that you need to be aware of, that we will be checking references. And then the final consultant list will be posted on IonWave. So we want to make sure that we welcome the questions. Like I said, we'll take questions up until October 21st at 12 noon. Those are welcome. They're welcome in this meeting and up until then. But we we would like to discourage you from lobbying. Please don't lobby the staff during this process. We won't accept any meetings or things of that nature while we're going through this process, so make sure you're aware of that. Okay, at this time, I'll let Erica talk about MWBE.
Good morning. My name is Erica Thompson, Office of Business Diversity. Pertaining to the minority and women-owned business enterprise, the city has an overall 30% MWBE goal for these projects. Certified MWBE primes may include that as their participation, the self-performance as their participation. Those of you who are looking for assistance on identifying sub-consultants to help you meet the goal, our department is here and available to assist you with that. The MWBE utilization plan and vendor certifications should be included with your proposal, as well as identify all proposed sub-consultants that will be participating on the project. On the screen, we have a list of recognized certification agencies that the city currently recognizes: NCTRCA, Hub, TexasDOT, DFW MSDC, Women's Business Council Southwest. And we also recognize any of the affiliates of the above mentioned. After vendors have been selected, there will be a negotiation meeting with the user department, Office of Business Diversity, and the selected proposer to finalize the MWBE plan once the scope has been a little bit more fleshed out. At that time, you will submit your letters of intent with your sub-consultants, as well as any good faith efforts that you may have, if applicable. A successful proposer will need to report monthly on prime and sub-consultant payments through the city's B2G diversity software program. And also to ensure compliance, all of the utilization plans that we obtain will be subject to award monitoring, just to make sure that we are able to track who is participating with you on these projects. That includes site visits and compliance audits. The city has a working relationship with SSP Consulting Services in an effort to help assist vendors with securing bonding, insurance certifications, and any additional technical assistance. At this time, I'll bring up Tamika Sadler with SSP Consulting.
Thank you, Erica. I'm Tamika Sadler with SSP Consulting, and we were just hired by the City of Arlington to help all of you and any of your sub-consultants with insurance, bonding, lines of credit, and minority certification. We've been in the business for at least 30 years. Calvin Stevens is the owner, and we're just here to help you and the City of Arlington with the MWBE utilization goals. So if you have any questions, please give me a call. I will be around. I have my card. And just to let you know, we've done this at other public entities. This is our first contract with the City of Arlington, and we look forward to helping out any way we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it, Erica. All right, just to go over a couple of some of the common errors that we've experienced in the past with some of the RFQ submittals. Grammar and spelling may be scored against the submittal, so make sure you're doing your spell checks. Not following instructions, like what we talked about earlier. We have a lot of these that we go through. If submittals are not, the company's not following instructions, we're not going to spend a lot of time reviewing it. I'm just going to be honest with you. Being unclear about team member roles, being unclear about sub-consultant roles, failing to provide information about MWBE sub-consultants. So please read through the RFQ, make sure you're including everything that we're asking for, so that we can fairly evaluate your submittal. Stating that MWBE consultants will be selected later. When you're submitting your team, we need to know who's on your team. So please make sure you have those things in order. Submitting the same exact team for each category and not adjusting it for the specific category. Like I said, we want to make sure that that team is going to be working on that particular project in that particular category. Please don't switch the team up at the time of when we start negotiating contracts. Submitting a list of projects completed by team members rather than including details about their experience, right? So we need to know, we're more interested in what the experience that people are bringing to the table here. Submitting project examples with very different requirements, challenges, and/or design criteria from Arlington's programs. So we submitted an example that I mentioned before. If you're submitting alley reconstruction for a residential rebuild project, which they're totally different type projects, we've had people submit an alley reconstruction, and it's totally different from a regular street, residential street rebuild. We've had that happen. Submitting design of new roads rather than rebuilds, or submitting drainage design for a new neighborhood rather than an existing one. So please make sure that the category matches, what you're submitting matches what we're actually asking for. That's going to be very critical. Not asking for clarification if you're not sure about a category. So please ask questions. And like I said, we'll have a deadline of October 21st to, if you have additional questions based on this meeting and whatever other additional questions that you may have, please submit those to our email address that's shown there, and that email address is also in the RFQ by October 21st. Another thing is failing to submit plan sheets if applicable for each category. So we need to actually see the plan sheet. Submitting plan sheets sealed by someone not listed on the team. Okay, we want to make sure whoever's submitting these, we're looking at their work. If that's your team member, we want to make sure that PE, that is their work that you're submitting a plan sheet for. Or if the plan sheet is not sealed, it needs to be sealed. So please don't send us an unsealed plan sheet. Or if you just only submit cover sheets, submitting irrelevant plan sheets that have nothing to do with the actual project category. Submitting a plan sheet with a lot of revisions. That's not something we want to see either. So if it's got a bunch of red circles and clouds and things like that, we don't want to see that. So let's put your best foot forward when you make your submittal. Now, so what are some of the best practices? So make sure you match your proposed team organization. You hear me mention this over and over because we review these every year, and sometimes we get mismatched stuff. So matching your team organization experience to the specific project category. I can't stress that enough. That's one of the main things we're looking at. It needs to match. It needs to match what we're asking for. Ensuring that you clearly identify team members, team leads, and all necessary components of a project for a specific category. Showing that your team has specialized experience needed for the specific category. Okay, those are things that we're really stressing and looking at. So your team is important, and making sure that you're matching the project category with your experience in the project example that you're going to show. Those are critical. Constructing teams that demonstrate a commitment to diversity and inclusion. So as you heard the presentation from Erica Thompson, that is something we are really pushing here at the City of Arlington. So make sure that you are making that commitment when you submit your RFQ. Also, tailoring your project examples to the specific category description identified in the RFQ, including examples, project examples that demonstrate your team members and subs have a history of successfully completing projects together. So that kind of helps us when we know y'all have worked together. You have a seamless process. You're not going to be arguing with your subs back and forth, right, to get things done. Those are things that we sometimes run into on projects, and it's kind of time consuming for us. So we want to make sure that y'all are working well together with your subs. Giving value add examples of difficult situations or innovative approaches through team structure, application of technology, creative solutions. So showing your ability to solve problems. Sometimes none of our projects are necessarily, sometimes we have boilerplate type projects, but some of them they get very specific, and we need an actual engineering solution. So showing us that you can be innovative and come up with a creative solution is also helpful when we're evaluating these RFQs. Providing good references on previous work history, including work performed or submitted to the City of Arlington. So all of these are key factors as far as best practices. Okay, contract negotiation. If we, as I mentioned before, selection is not a guarantee of a contract, okay? And the negotiations will begin after the capital budgets are, it will begin after the capital budgets are approved at the city, with the city. So we'll probably start at a little bit, once we have our selection, we'll probably get started, but we won't be able to actually go to council with a contract until after the capital budget is approved. And then standard contracts are attached in RFQ. Team continuity is expected, and we'll evaluate the ability to meet MWB project-specific goals. So those are things. And I believe we have in our contract, please don't submit a different version of our contract. Our contract is what it is. Please don't submit a different version for us to look at. Okay, so at this time, we'll open it up to questions, but before I get to that, a couple of things I just want to make sure we stress. RFQ submittal date, once again, is November 4th at 4:30 p.m. November 4th, 4:30 p.m. We mentioned the deadline for additional questions. We want those in writing. Please don't call us and just ask us questions over the phone. Actually submit your questions. Submit that to that website or email address that we discussed. All of this is in the RFQ by October 21st at noon. This presentation will be shown on the city, posted on the city website, also through Ion Wave. Let's see, I think I had a couple of questions here that have been submitted so far, so we'll just talk about those real quick. And then if you have some questions, we'll address those. So one of the questions was, for the 2023 RFQ, is there one consultant contact sheet and one cover letter per company, and then multiple category documents with team organization and project experience if submitting for multiple categories? Or should there be a consulting contact sheet and cover letter per category as well? Our answer is simply, a cover letter and consulting contact sheet should not be included in the category PDF. So you have the separate category PDF. Do not submit that within that PDF. So submit that separately. Also, for the team organization, are resumes included in the 3-page limit? Okay, now this is something that we've experienced every year. I want to make sure we're pretty clear on this. The team organization is limited to 3 pages, period. Is limited to 3 pages. So don't submit a 3-page thing and then attach, another 3 or 4 or 5 pages of team resumes. It's 3 pages total. So basically attaching full resumes for each person on your org chart will be counted towards your 3-page limit. Exceeding this limit could result in disqualification. So 3 pages total. If you want to put in a resume, that's fine, but that's your 3 pages. So if you want to tell us about other parts of your team, make sure you don't use up your 3 pages, but with submitting a bunch of resumes. Well, we appreciate y'all coming out and joining us today. We're looking forward to a very successful 2023 with our consulting firm. So we appreciate this, y'all taking the time out to come and ask questions. And like I said, if you have additional questions, please submit those questions. It helps us, and it also helps other firms, because most of the time they have the exact same questions. So submit those, and we'll get those out and make sure everybody's on the same page. And good luck in your submittals. So thank y'all.